Imagine waking up one day and realizing you've been groomed, not to lead, but to follow. Since birth, the world has whispered soft lies into your ears. Be nice. Don't question too much. Stay in line, and you'll be rewarded. But what if I told you the truth is far darker and far more liberating? The world doesn't want you to be strong. It doesn't want you to think for yourself, move with boldness, or speak with clarity. It wants you compliant, predictable, safe. Because if you dare to rise, if you dare to become dangerous, you're no longer easy to control. And control is what the system craves. Look around you. The loudest voices are often the most hollow. The biggest smiles often hide the deepest weakness. And those who tell you to just be yourself are often the first to shame you when you actually do. In a society that rewards conformity, strength becomes rebellion. That's why they tell you not to be assertive, because they're afraid of what happens when you stop asking for permission. That's why they label ambition as greed, because they fear what happens when you stop playing small. But here's the truth. The world doesn't get better by you staying quiet. It changes when you get loud, not with noise, but with action. This video isn't about feel-good motivation. This is about awakening the part of you that's been sleeping for too long. The part that knows you were meant for more than survival. You were born to lead. But leadership doesn't begin with a title or applause. It begins with a decision to stop being a sheep and start being the wolf. Over the next few chapters, we're diving deep into Machiavelli's darkest, most empowering truths. Not to manipulate others, but to finally take back control of your own life. Because the truth is simple. If you don't lead your life, someone else will. So I'll ask again. The world wants you weak. Will you let it? You may think the truth speaks for itself. That if you work hard, if you're honest, if you're good, the world will see it and reward you. That's the lie you've been told. Here's the truth. It doesn't matter what you are. It matters what they think you are. Niccolo Machiavelli, the man who dared to write The Prince, understood something most people still deny. Perception isn't just a tool. It's the entire battlefield. He wrote, "Men judge more by the eyes than by the hands. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." It's brutal, it's cold, and it's true. You can be intelligent, courageous, principled. But if you appear weak, uncertain, indecisive, no one will follow you. Worse, they'll use you, walk over you, forget you. That's not injustice, that's reality. So ask yourself, what image do you project? Because if you don't control it, someone else will. Maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your friends, maybe it's social media, feeding you a curated version of who you should be, one like at a time. You become a mask, a performance, a reflection of others' expectations. But the wolf doesn't wear disguises to be accepted. He crafts perception as a weapon, not to deceive, but to protect what's his and to move with intent. Because in a world where everyone's watching, image is influence. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to beg for approval. You have to walk like you know who you are and why you're here. That presence, that confidence, that is not born from arrogance. It is born from clarity, from knowing your values, your mission, and your strengths. It is the silence before the storm. It is the gaze that doesn't flinch. It is the man or woman who doesn't need to speak loudly, because the room listens anyway. So, no, you don't get to ignore how the world sees you. Not if you want to lead. Perception isn't a game. It's the difference between influence and irrelevance. The next time you walk into a room, remember this. You're not just being seen, you're being measured. And the question is, are you controlling the frame or being framed? We're told to be nice, to play fair, to wait our turn, to smile, nod, and stay humble. But here's the problem. The world doesn't reward niceness. It rewards boldness. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't write his philosophy for the faint of heart. He wrote it for those who wanted to survive and win. He warned, it is better to be bold than cautious when you can't be both. Why? Because in a world ruled by predators and prey, those who hesitate die waiting. Now listen closely. This isn't about cruelty. This isn't about stepping on others just to rise. It's about understanding a brutal truth. Kindness without strength is weakness. And weakness invites exploitation. That's why the wolf thrives. He's not interested in being liked. He's interested in leading the pack or surviving the winter. He knows that nature doesn't care about fairness. It cares about fitness. So the wolf moves first. He strikes when it matters. He doesn't overthink. He doesn't apologize for existing. Can you say the same? How many moments have you lost because you were too afraid to act? That promotion you didn't ask for. That idea you kept quiet. That boundary you failed to set because you didn't want to upset anyone. You were polite. You were agreeable. And you disappeared. Machiavelli taught that fortune favors the bold. Not because bold people are lucky, but because they make their own luck. Boldness creates momentum. It tells the world, I'm here. I will not be ignored. And here's the secret. Most people are so trapped in fear, so addicted to being liked, that a little boldness looks like magic. You don't need to be reckless, but you do need to be daring. Because playing small to make others comfortable? That's not virtue. That's self-betrayal. Being bold doesn't mean being loud. It means taking the risk others won't. It means saying no when everyone expects yes. It means choosing the harder road, because it leads where you truly want to go. So stop waiting for permission. Be decisive. Be daring. Be dangerous. Because when the wolf walks into the clearing, the sheep don't laugh. They freeze. And they follow. There's a word most people are afraid of. Ruthless. They hear it and recoil, as if it implies cruelty, evil, or inhumanity. But Machiavelli had a different view. To him, ruthlessness, when calculated, wasn't evil. It was a tool, a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. Not used often, but used precisely, when nothing else would work. And here's the truth few want to admit. There are moments in life when kindness fails, when diplomacy breaks down, when waiting becomes weakness, and action becomes survival. That's when ruthlessness, if you've mastered it, becomes your edge. But don't mistake this for rage. Rage is messy, emotional. Ruthlessness, real ruthlessness, is cold. It's strategic. It's controlled. Think of a lion in the grass. It doesn't roar before it pounces. It waits. It calculates. And when the time is right, it finishes the job. The wolf is the same. He doesn't attack for sport. He doesn't waste energy barking. He uses force only when the moment calls for it. And when he does, there is no hesitation. So how do you apply this? It starts with clarity. You must know what you want precisely, and you must know what threatens it. That toxic relationship draining your energy? That colleague constantly undermining your work? That old identity that keeps you small, afraid, and tame? At some point, diplomacy ends, and you must act swiftly and without guilt. Because here's the thing, people respect strength. even if they don't like it. And more importantly, they test weakness. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must learn how not to be good when the necessity compels him." That necessity comes for all of us. You will be forced to choose. Protect your boundaries or be walked over. Protect your purpose or be dragged into irrelevance. Ruthlessness doesn't mean harming people for pleasure. It means making hard decisions for the right reasons and not apologizing for them. So ask yourself, where in your life are you being too soft? Where are you negotiating when you should be acting? What lines must finally be drawn? Because the wolf may walk silently, but when he strikes, it's final. In the wild, there's no mercy for those who don't adapt. A wolf that doesn't learn the patterns of its prey, that doesn't read the terrain, that doesn't move when the winds shift, isn't feared, it's forgotten. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it is, unstable, unpredictable, a landscape where power changes hands as quickly as the weather. His lesson? If you do not evolve, you will be eaten. Adaptability for Machiavelli was not a luxury. It was a requirement for survival. He wrote, "The man who adjusts his behavior to the times prospers, while he who clings to old ways perishes." In other words, the wolf survives not because it is the strongest, but because it is the most responsive. So, what does this mean for you? It means every situation demands a new version of you. The version of you that succeeded 5 years ago? He's not enough today. The world moved. The game changed. Are you still playing by the old rules? Maybe you're clinging to outdated beliefs. That hard work alone guarantees success. That being nice means people will treat you fairly. That life owes you something for showing up. It doesn't. The wolf learns fast. He studies the terrain. He listens when the wind carries new signals. And he moves, even if it means abandoning the old trail. And here's the brutal truth. Most people would rather stay comfortable than survive. They resist change. They pretend the world will slow down for them. But wolves? They evolve. They become what the world demands. Or they vanish. In a time of economic shifts, cultural chaos, and digital wars of perception, staying still is a slow death. So ask yourself, where are you refusing to adapt? What parts of your identity no longer serve you? What new skills, mindsets, or strategies must you develop now, before it's too late? Because survival today isn't about being a lion, roaring into the void. It's about being the wolf in the shadows, silent, aware, ready to change and strike, adapt, or be devoured. Power is never handed to you. Not in politics, not in relationships, not in life. People don't give away power. They protect it. They cling to it. They guard it like it's their last breath. So if you're waiting for the world to recognize your greatness, you'll die waiting. Machiavelli knew this truth long before modern society tried to mask it with platitudes. He wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." Translation? Perception is the real power. What people believe about you often matters more than what's actually true. You could be competent, brilliant, and full of potential, but if you look weak, if you sound uncertain, if you act like you're seeking approval, then the world will treat you like a pawn. Because the world doesn't see your intentions, it sees your image. And your image is a weapon or a leash. That's why wolves command perception. They walk into a room with presence. They speak when it matters, and when they do, people lean in. You don't have to be arrogant. but you do have to be undeniable. This is the art of strategic visibility. Not being loud, being clear, not trying to please, but making people feel they can't ignore you. Ask yourself, what message are you broadcasting through your posture, your words, your silence? Because make no mistake, people are always watching, and they're always deciding. Do you lead or do you follow? In Machiavelli's world, and ours, appearances are armor. They repel attacks, they signal strength, and they tell the world, this one cannot be manipulated. So if you want real power, don't wait to be chosen. Choose yourself. Craft the perception. Control the narrative. Become the one who sets the tone, not the one reacting to it. Because the truth is simple. Power isn't earned by being nice. It's seized through clarity, control, and the courage to project who you really are, even before the world believes it. And when perception aligns with intention, you stop chasing power. You become it. Chaos is not out there. It's not in the news. It's not in the economy, the politics, the storms, or the noise. Chaos is inside you. And until you learn to tame it, you'll never lead. You'll only react. Machiavelli didn't preach control over nations before mastering control over the self. Because true influence, the kind that shapes decisions and bends outcomes, starts where the world can't see it, inside your mind. Think about it. What derails most people? It's not some external disaster. It's panic. It's impulse. It's fear disguised as logic. It's an untrained mind turning every challenge into catastrophe. But the wolf, the true leader, knows better. When chaos erupts, the sheep run in circles. They wait for someone to tell them what to do. The wolf? He stands still. He observes, not reacts. He breathes before he moves. Because he knows, control isn't a reaction. It's a choice. Here's the secret Machiavelli hinted at, time and time again. The most dangerous man is the one who stays calm while everyone else loses their head. He doesn't just survive the storm, he uses it. Why? Because emotion clouds strategy. And strategy, not strength, decides who rises. When you master your internal world, you become untouchable. Not because the world gets easier, but because your response becomes sharper. You begin to see opportunities others miss. You act with precision when others act from panic. You stop chasing control and start embodying it. So ask yourself, when things go wrong, do you spiral or do you focus? Do you react like a sheep or respond like a wolf? Because leadership is not about shouting louder. It's about thinking clearer. It's not about fixing the storm. It's about becoming the calm within it. And once you master your inner chaos, you no longer fear the world's disorder. You command it. Because in Machiavelli's world, power doesn't go to the strongest. It goes to the one who sees through the chaos and remains unmoved. You've been taught to wait. Wait for the green light. Wait for approval. Wait for the right timing. But here's the truth. Machiavelli screamed between the lines. The world doesn't give permission to lead. You take it. And while the sheep are busy asking, "Am I ready?" the wolf already made his move. Because leadership isn't granted, it's claimed. No one wakes up one day and hands you power, influence, or respect. You earn it by stepping forward, before you're invited. Think of every powerful figure in history. None of them waited. They saw a gap, a vacuum, a weakness, and they filled it. Not with arrogance, but with presence, certainty, and action. That's the wolf's way. Act first. Ask never. You see, when you wait for validation, you become a hostage to opinion. and opinions are fragile. One moment you're admired, the next, forgotten. Machiavelli understood this psychological trap. He wrote that a prince must learn to act against faith, against charity, against humanity, against religion, if it serves his survival and strength. Controversial? Yes. But buried in that statement is this timeless truth. If you want to lead, you cannot be chained to the comfort of being liked. Leaders move with conviction, even when the crowd doesn't cheer, especially when it doesn't. The wolf doesn't wait for consensus. He creates the momentum. He doesn't ask, "Is this okay?" He says, "This is the way." And when he does, others follow. Because deep down, people crave direction. They don't trust the loudest. They trust the most certain. So ask yourself, where are you holding back, waiting for someone to tap your shoulder? What dream, decision, or change are you postponing just to feel safe? Machiavelli would say, burn the permission slip, step forward, lead without permission. Because if you're always waiting for someone to crown you king, you'll die a servant. The wolf doesn't wait. He becomes. There's one test that separates the wolves from the sheep. It's not strength. It's not intelligence. It's not strategy. It's authenticity. Ruthless authenticity. Not the polished version. Not the filtered, smiling, socially acceptable version of you, but the real you. Unmasked, undeniable, unapologetic. You see, the final level of power isn't domination over others. It's sovereignty over yourself. Machiavelli understood that no ruler can truly lead others if he is ruled by fear. Fear of judgment, rejection, or not fitting in. Most people build masks, but the wolf, he tears his off. Because power doesn't come from pretending. It comes from owning. Owning your ambition. Owning your darkness. Owning your drive, your flaws, your hunger to win. Even if the world calls it too much. The sheep dilute themselves to be accepted. The wolf sharpens himself to be respected. And here's the brutal truth. The more authentic you become, the more alone you may feel at first. Because authenticity threatens the insecure. It disrupts the herd. It forces others to confront the lies they've told themselves. But Machiavelli would say, that loneliness, that silence, that's where leadership begins. It's easy to wear a mask. It's easy to say what people want to hear. But it's only when you speak your truth, without flinching, without begging for applause, that people finally stop and listen. To be ruthlessly authentic is to choose your path, even when it's unpopular. To set your own values, even when they offend. To become so grounded in your identity that no amount of criticism can unseat you. Because here's what the world doesn't tell you. Once you stop performing, you stop being controlled. So ask yourself, are you living your truth? Or are you still hiding behind what feels safe? This is your final test. Not whether you can dominate the world, but whether you can stop betraying yourself. The wolf doesn't ask, who should I be? He says, this is who I am. And that's why the world moves when he does. So now we arrive, not at the end, but at the summit. This is where the pretenders fall away, and the few who've endured the storm emerge, crowned not by gold, but by gravitas. You see, true power isn't declared. It's felt. It walks into the room before you do. It doesn't beg. It doesn't shout. It simply exists and commands. Machiavelli knew this. He knew that respect is not a gift. It is not handed out by the crowd. It is earned step by brutal step, by a life lived with precision, clarity, and force of will. You want to be the crowned one? Then live like your choices matter. Because they do. Live with intention. Every word calculated. every move deliberate, every relationship strategic. But understand, respect doesn't come from being feared alone. It comes from being revered, because those around you see that unlike the sheep, you do not fold under pressure. You do not explain yourself to fools. You are rooted, unmovable, inevitable. The crowned one has scars, not just on the skin, but in the soul, each one a symbol of resilience, proof that while others ran, you remained. You outlasted. And here's what no one tells you. The true reward isn't applause. It's not status. It's not money. It's peace. The peace of knowing you bowed to no one, that you didn't dilute yourself to be liked, that you built a life so solid, so undeniable, that even your enemies feel compelled to respect you. This is the power of the crowned one. Not the one who wins with tricks, but the one who wins with presence. So now ask yourself, have you played small for too long? Have you let comfort steal your crown? Because the world isn't waiting, and neither should you. Build your life like it's a fortress. Lead like no one's coming to save you. Speak like every word matters. And move like the wolf you were born to be. The throne doesn't need permission. It only needs someone bold enough to take it. So go. Be crowned, not with approval, but with respect.